all of this bowhead whale's bones were collected for the museum, some of the bones were missing. So the missing bones had to be replicated, and that was done by scanning bones from other whales, scaling them to the size of this whale, and then 3D printing all those parts. A lot of the pieces were, when they were scanned, they weren't scanned as one big bone. They were scanned in several parts, and then they had to be glued together. And then those glue marks had to be sanded down. But there are, you can still see some evidence of that seam if you look closely at it. One of the bowhead whale humerus bones is a well-cleaned actual bone that was harvested in 1963. And the other is a mirrored copy. It was scanned, 3D printed, and then painted by museum artists. And there are definitely some differences if you were to look really, really close. For one thing, there are some cracks and fissures in the real bone. And the real bone is a lot heavier. The plastic bones are very light. If you were to kind of tap on it, you would hear a different sound between the different bones. There are a lot of bones that were replicated. We've been working mostly on the bones that belong to the whale's flippers at this point. There were 44 finger bones, 22 from each hand, and there are 3 arm bones on the right-hand side. So the bones started out, they were white, and then they were primed with a primer that was colored to match the lightest tone in the bones, in the natural bones. And it's important to mention that the natural bones, there's a lot of variation in the color, not just in one bone. It's not that just one bone has lots of colors, but even the skull bones are a different color from, the vertebrae, which even of the vertebrae, some of them are yellower than others, some are lighter. So just trying to find a color that sort of spoke to all of them as a light tone in the bone. And that's how we started with the primer. And then we chose a selection of acrylic paints in a variety of earthy tones, such as raw sienna, raw umber, burnt sienna, yellow ochre, some Payne's gray, zinc white, and we used a lot of matte medium to sort of kind of water down the color to make it very thin and apply it in many, many, many layers with natural sea sponges. We used paintbrushes a little bit, but found that the sea sponges did a really good job of getting kind of a natural mottled sort of texture on there, and it's really just been a process of layering and layering all those different colors on top of each other until it gets to be just about right. So one big challenge for me for applying the paint was that paint was constantly all over my fingers, because you have to pick up the little bones and hold them as you're applying the paint, and they're 3-dimensional, so you're getting it all on all sides, and then putting them down so that they could dry a little while you work on the next one. But there was just always a lot of paint on my hands, and that can be messy. As a painter, I normally work with paintbrushes, and I paint on canvas or on wood panel, and I don't tend to get much paint on my fingers at all, or on my clothing or my mask, as I did with this project.